Welcome into the latest edition of the Pump Fake. Jarrett Bailey with you, as always, joined by my friend, colleague, mentor, Mike Tanier from The Messenger. Always good to see you. We are not dressed up. That is one thing that I said earlier. We are not dressed up as Batman and Robin.
No. I'm trying to. I have like the Michael Keaton Flash movie, Batman. I can kind of get that look going if I put a little wig on, but that's about as far as it goes.
It is good to see you, as always. I do want to start, though. We'll get into the Week 9 slate, but there was a few firings inside the building in Las Vegas as Mark Davis has finally had enough, and he has fired Bill Belichick cosplayer Josh McDaniels as head coach, as well as his offensive coordinator Mike Lombardi and his general manager Dave Ziegler. They are starting anew in Vegas again, and now Mark Davis is paying two head coaches that are no longer under his payroll. Well, they're under his payroll. They're not in the building anymore.
Right.
And now Antonio Pierce will be interim head coach for the rest of the season. Just a lot of crap hitting the fan in Las Vegas. Oh, and by the way, Aiden O'Connell's the starter going forward. So the Jimmy Garoppolo era in Las Vegas lasted all of, a month and a half, 2 months. So just everything that could have gone wrong in Vegas has gone wrong. They're 3-5, turning to the rookie quarterback. I think Devontae Adams is probably happy about that. But were you surprised that they did it in season?
When it happened, and I find out about it at about 6 a.m. East Coast time, because it kind of broke overnight as news. I started thinking about it, and I realized this is a owner angry about how the trade deadline went. He's angry about how Monday night went, because that was just, I don't know what he expected, but that was just a poop show.
Yeah.
And I can't, and there's news breaking right now. Florio is talking about how teams were inquiring, the Jets were inquiring about Devontae and were rebuffed. And I think another team was inquiring about Devontae and were rebuffed. And I think Mark Davis got wind of this and say, why am I paying an incredible amount of money for a completely disgruntled employee right now, when the Jets would probably, to get him back with Aaron Rodgers, would probably throw something significant at us to get this guy. And I'm out from under his salary. And that, I think, was the catalyst, as well as the last couple of games, which they've been horrible, of him saying, what am I doing with any of these clowns?
I think that's fair. And, the lasting image of Jimmy Garoppolo right now in Vegas is him violently overthrowing Devontae Adams on multiple occasions, the last of which there was an Alliance defender within 15 yards of him.
Right.
So, yeah, you've got this disgruntled, really talented player that you absolutely could have gotten something for.
Right.
And Ziegler and company just say, nope, not trading him.
And Davis has to be wondering, why did we go from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo? There's still no logic behind that. Like you say, well, we're done with Derek Carr because of his limitations. Okay, then you go get a rookie, or you go all in for Aaron Rodgers or something like that. You don't just say, well, can we get a light beer version of even Derek Carr and pay him a lot of money? Oh, and is he already injured when we sign him? Like this triumvirate of things where you say, well, okay, we bring Garoppolo in. Well, maybe we're getting some professionalism out of the deal. That's what you were getting. That was the professionalism on Monday night. And don't forget, also, Garoppolo was hurt, and we were subjected to Brian Hoyer.
Yes.
Right.
Do you think that was maybe a part of it too, that he started Hoyer over O'Connell when he should have probably started O'Connell rather than throwing, like, we know what Brian Hoyer is. We know he doesn't give us the best chance to win. Why are you putting it? It just felt like Josh McDaniels was trying to turn, and Ziegler were just trying to turn them into, like, Patriots West.
Right. Well, the moment Hoyer got signed, I would take these guys into the office and well, what's the purpose of this? Garoppolo doesn't need a mentor.
Yeah.
Garoppolo does not need a mentor. The quarterback room could be Garoppolo, and okay, O'Connell's going to be your rookie, and then someone cheap, free, another youngster, etc. You don't need, you want to bring Brian Hoyer in, he's your assistant quarterbacks coach. You don't do this. And there's all these times along the way where I think Mark Davis should have been asking these questions, and maybe he was behind the scenes, but it had to be banging on his head at the end there, especially if it's getting back to him that phone calls are going to McDaniels, Ziegler, for Devontae Adams, and again told, no, we don't have a plan. We don't have a plan to make use of him, and he's pissed off. But we don't want to get rid of him either. We're just not going to do it.
It's like
you picture McDaniels being like that too, just like, no, just not gonna.
Absolutely. It's
Right.
like what is that show? Is it Parks and Rec where David Cross is like, it hasn't worked for anybody else, but it could work for us. Like just that entire.
Right.
And I think what is really the big overarching thing from this is that the Patriot way doesn't work. It
Right.
worked in New England, obviously, but when you try to take it elsewhere, it doesn't work. And right now, in New England, it's not working anymore either.
Right.
So, and you bring in, I mean, you talk about the signings, you bring in a Hoyer, a Garoppolo. That was the biggest thing too, because if you move off Derek Carr, fine, whatever. If you feel like you've seen the limit of what Derek Carr can be with the Raiders, then whatever. But if you go from Coors to Coors Light, how much is there really a difference?
Right.
Like if you're going to go from a Coors, at least go to like get a Dos Equis or get a Heineken.
Right.
Yeah, something
Right.
different.
Or the new, or get the brand new beer from the local brew pub and say, well, this is the rookie beer. Get rookie.
Yeah.
and and try like there were reports in the off season and after a really bad season last year that
6-11 last year, I think.
5-11 or 5 and whatever it is now, 5-12
Yeah.
or 6-11. It was like, and they had lost all those games where they had a lead and they blew the lead. And McDaniels started doing the talk about the culture.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to change the culture, and like anytime you hear the culture talk, like it's a yellow flag. But if you're doing it in your second year, it's a red flag.
Yeah.
Like, what did you do in the last year that now and then of course the culture thing was we're bringing Hoyer in. We're bringing Jacoby Myers is a good player. You bring him in. There's guys running around that bench who are like just Patriots guys who get brought in there. And
Right.
The Patriot way for every one of these other Yahoos, Patricia and McDaniels,
Patricia.
it's always to go grab guys off the Patriots bench and babble about the culture and storm around and, like you said, cosplay Belichick. It's never anything that's tangibly real. This was a problem years ago with the Bill Parcells clones. And not Belichick, obviously, because he's different, although the first time he was a little bit like this with the Browns, where they think running around and giving tough guy speeches and going my way or the highway and telling guys to run laps, like that was Parcells' secret. No, Parcells' secret was that he was a brilliant defensive guy and a talent evaluator and a talent developer, and he had motivational tactics that weren't just yelling. But like these little mini Parcells that went out there were just screaming assholes. And that's what they thought the secret sauce was. That's what Belichick, you get these secretive, weird martinets who get in there and like crappy to the media and are crappy to players and everything. They think that's the way Bill did it. It's like Bill did that because he did all the other things right. That wasn't the thing he was doing right.
Right. And like we knew what we've seen this Josh McDaniels thing before in Denver. Like, albeit it was a decade ago, but it wasn't good. And if you look at his win-loss record in Denver compared to what it was in Vegas, it was largely the same. And the same issues that were happening in Denver arose in Vegas.
Yes.
This is all, I mean, a lot of this goes on Mark Davis too, because it doesn't feel like there's any rhyme or reason for these head coaching hires. Like if you want to go out and get Gruden out of the Monday Night Football booth, that was a risk in of itself because he hadn't been a head coach in a while and the game had largely passed him by in his time away. And then you pay big money for Gruden. All that stuff happens obviously with that makes him, step down. And then you go out and pay big money for Josh McDaniels. Oh, by the way, McDaniels is parlayed riding shotgun in a Rolls Royce. 3 head coaching gigs if you count him leaving the Colts at the midnight hour.
Right.
I just hopefully this is a lesson learned that, going forward, look for head coaches that do more with less, not, what's expected of them to do with a Tom Brady that they've had for 2 decades.
Right. And the NFL establishment doesn't think that way. For the Raiders, in terms of a rebuild, you have to go back to McKenzie at the beginning of the Del Rio era. So I think we're back at around 2013 or something.
2013, 2014.
Where they get Khalil Mack and Carr and Cooper after doing a salary purge. And they sort of start building that team. That team falls apart. Del Rio's kind of an idiot, let's face it. They had a hard time building traction. But since then, Mark Davis has had zero interest in saying, let's do real rebuilding stuff. It's all been like, let's get Gruden and let him spend money like a madman.
Yeah.
Let's get McDaniels and say he can get Chandler Jones, which we don't even want to talk about, and Adams, and we're going to fix this right away. I don't know if you can do it again because I don't know who's going to sign on with him at this point.
That's the thing. Like whomever they do bring in, like it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be like a well-established name because, like you said, who's going to want to do that?
Right.
I don't know, man. Maybe Bill goes there. What do you think, Bill Belichick? He already got the clone.
I was joking about. I wrote a thing for the messenger. He will shake hands with Mark Davis, and he'll feel the oily sweat on his palm, and he'll start going this, I guess, and he'll just turn around and leave and just drive away. I had you sussed out the moment I walked in the door here. The talk, by the way, and Florio just put this out there, is that Harris and Magic Johnson and those guys in Washington will make a play for Belichick. And of course they will.
Of course they would.
And with their money, and I think they know people, like they have mutual friends and things like that, they could probably make that happen. I don't know if that really works. I don't know if translating Belichick in this point in his career solves any problems. And also he's under super secret contract now with the Patriots. But like that's more believable that like Harris and the Commanders can go out there with the money and the prestige and like we're not Dan Snyder, we're a different,
right?
Here's Magic Johnson's here. You can't argue with this guy, right? And they can get a guy that Mark Davis can't get.
Yeah, Aaron and I talked about that, like the possibility of Bill just being traded from New England to somewhere else, and Washington seems to be like the team that would be, at least at the top of that list. But that's a whole other conversation for another day. Looking at the Week 9 schedule, Mike Tanier, there's not a lot of. It's a top-heavy schedule. There's like 4 games that are like, my goodness, and then 8 games that are just, oh my god, they're so bad. But the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs kick off the Sunday slate in Germany for whatever reason. Why would you want to have Tyreek Hill's return to Kansas City in Arrowhead? Makes no sense. But the Chiefs are favored by 1.5 points. We know the stories of both teams coming in. Chiefs are coming off their first loss to the Broncos since Barack Obama's second term. And the Dolphins are looking for their first quality win of the season. Where are you leaning right now in terms of this game?
I'm all over the place with it. For the reasons you said, I watched the Eagles take care of business against the Dolphins. I watched the Bills really take care of business against the Dolphins. And you've mentioned it, that the Dolphins wins are these like just molly stomping things against the Panthers.
They're beating like FCS Midwest and
right.
Pineapple State. Just they're not beating anybody worth a damn right now.
Right. And then I look at the Chiefs and I'm like, the Chiefs don't look real to me right now with this receiving core. Okay. And I was like, if they even had Juju Smith-Schuster like last year, I could say, I can see this shootout happening. But I know the Chiefs defense is pretty good this year. I don't think that pretty good is not going to be good enough against the Dolphins. And this is either like the most magical Patrick Mahomes game in the world in terms of the things he does, or this is like the reality check and the Dolphins smoke the Chiefs. So
I think that's what it would be. I think either the Chiefs win close or the Dolphins just smack them.
I feel like just teasing the Dolphins to -6 or something like that and getting the line up to +200 or something and just playing that. And like, well, if I lose, I lose, but I get the payday.
Yeah.
Here, because if that's the way it's going to go, I want a payday for it.
That's fair. That's a good point. Yeah, like you look at the Chiefs receivers, like why is Sky Moore still a thing? Like I think we've seen enough of the Sky Moore experience. Yeah. Obviously, Justin Ross is a nutcase, and he's no longer with the team. And then you have like Kadarius Toney. Who the hell else is on that?
Kadarius and Mecole are the same human.
Oh yeah, they did trade for Mecole, I suppose. So
right, who went out and muffed the kick because he's Mecole. All right. Like the Jets looked at this guy like, no, what did we do? Yeah, and they had him for 5 years there in Kansas City. They know it's like these are the 2 or 3 routes we can trust him to run, and the end around, and the shovel pass, and the punt return if he fields it. And Kadarius is the same guy, except you can put him in the Wildcat, which Rashee Rice is coming around as somebody who would be helpful. Butrez Galley. Like at receiver, that's your one deep threat every 3 weeks. He was the prime minister. I think I just made a horrible political joke. He was the prime minister of a nation that we probably shouldn't even talk about, if I'm remembering. Marquez Valdez Halfling, ladies and gentlemen. That's who
my goodness. Yeah, this isn't exactly a murderer's row. This isn't the 27 Yankees lineup at receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. This isn't very good.
When Andy Reid coached the Eagles, we had these years where it was like Todd Pinkston.
Oh, LJ Smith.
Right. And there was a year was torn small and Charles Johnson.
He
And
was a Steeler for a minute.
he was a Steeler for a couple of years. I think he was a first-round pick of the Steelers, and he wound up on the Eagles.
Wow.
But and that was McNabb, not Mahomes. But that defense was really good with Brian Dawkins, etc. But it's frustrating to watch them because they're not going to run the ball. They're finding Kelsey in these magical ways, but it's like, well, at some point Kelsey catches 10 for 80, and the rest of these guys drop passes and fumble.
And that's the thing too. Like, it's great that Kelsey can do that, but it's not anything deep. He's eating the middle of the field and getting some yak, but he's also he's like 34, 35 now. How long can he keep going at this clip?
Right.
Eventually, they're going to need to have some sort of a cavalry that comes in aid of Travis Kelsey, not him just going out there like Jesse James every week trying to just shoot up the OK Corral.
Right.
So that does worry me about Kansas City. I think that if the Dolphins also didn't have Jalen Ramsey until last week, and he's already making his presence known. He had an interception last week against New England. So, Miami didn't really make any moves, but getting Jalen Ramsey back, that's kind of their big trade deadline splash, is that he's back in the lineup.
Yeah.
So I think that would be, if the Dolphins are going to get their signature win, it will be in this game.
They could put Ramsey on Kelsey.
They could.
Especially if Xavier Howard is healthy. I don't know Xavier's status right now. But they just say, well, heck with it. We'd be wasting Ramsey. Ramsey's a big dude.
And it would be similar to when McVay and Staley had him playing star in Los Angeles, just moving him around. I don't think it would be too different than that, just putting him on Kelsey.
Right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tease the line in some crazy direction and bet on a Dolphins blowout. And then if I take the loss, whatever, but go for that big payday.
I'll tail you on that, by the way. If you post it on Threads, I'll follow you on it. Yeah, we'll double up on it.
All right. Well, we'll make bad decisions together.
That's fine. If we're gonna, there's worse things that we could do. We
have made worse decisions in Indianapolis.
That's very true. We talked about the Raiders already. The trend of interim coaches and teams playing hard for interim coaches. I'm betting Raiders -1.5 against the Giants.
Do it.
Absolutely.
Do it. I love it.
At home against maybe Daniel Jones if he's back, who scares nobody. I trust the Raiders defense a lot more than I thought I would at this point in the year. We know how good Crosby is and whatnot. 1.5, interim head coach, Aiden O'Connell and the boys. Let's ride. Go Raiders.
Do it.
Bills-Bengals is the other big game. This one's in primetime on Sunday Night Football. We all know the pure severity of what happened this past season with the DeMar Hamlin situation, the first time that both teams will be back in the same building back in that building, at least since that happened. The Bills, 1.5-point dogs on the road. I think this is the first time the Bills have been underdogs in 27 games or something crazy like that. I don't know, man. This is with the Bills. I can trust that they're going to, if it's a big game, they're going to show up. I know that they're going to show up. They're going to play at their hardest. But I know that when they play Appalachian State, it could be a game. So I trust that Buffalo will show up. I trust that it'll be a competitive game. Does Cincinnati keep this thing going? They look like their old selves again, especially after the bye week with Burrow's calf getting as healthy as it can be. He just went 28 of 32 against the Niners for 3 touchdowns, and the defense looks really good as well. I don't know. I'm not touching the line for this game. I'll bet some player props, but in terms of I have no idea. I have no idea where to go.
Right. The Bills as favorites attracts me a little bit, but my faith in them is very low. And how can you have faith in them to show up after the AFC playoff game against the Bengals?
That's fair.
Right. I mean, and they can, and one thing is also they can show up it's so over the top hype that it is Josh Allen throw it into orbit day and blitz.
That is the other thing. Is it going to be Josh Allen against the Jets? Is it going to be Josh Allen against the Patriots, or is it going to be Josh Allen showing up the way that he did in weeks 2 through 4, where he was looking great against the Raiders and they were pummeling teams? So it is a very much pick your poison type situation when you bet on the Bills.
And I like how, the Bills on last Thursday night, and it's this is them at their peak. Look at what they're doing. Look how effective they are. The final score of that game was 24-18.
That game had zero reason to be that close. Like the Bills were stomping them for 3 quarters, and then they took the foot off the gas, and then the Buccaneers went on that like 37 play, 2-hour drive, that ended in a touchdown.
Right.
And then the Buccaneers get the ball back. Von Miller goes off sides, and if Chris Godwin turns around a half second sooner, the Buccaneers win.
Right, and this is the Bills' big game.
Yes,
Bills get stopped at the 1 in that game. Allen throws like a batted pass interception that leads to a touchdown. Like if this is them, this is a Super Bowl caliber team at peak capacity, and they're going 24-18. I know it's Thursday night, etc.
Sure.
That doesn't restore my faith in them. That doesn't restore my faith in them. So I don't know. I'm staying off the board on this one too. I got something for you here. Aaron has some odds.
Okay.
The Bills make the playoffs, 84% chance if they win. Their chance goes down to 54% if they lose.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the second half of their schedule is brutal, man. They got Philadelphia, Kansas City. I think they got Dallas in there. They get a break. I think after this week, they play Denver. But after that, man, they got Miami again, too. Like, it is a brutal stretch.
It's a brutal stretch. You wind up as a wild card behind the Dolphins in a lot of these scenarios if you lose this game. And I believe this would take them to 1-4 in the AFC. It's going to be, they have 4 AFC losses.
Yeah, because they lost to Jacksonville, they lost to the Jets, they lost to the Patriots, and this would be a loss to the Bengals. So that would be 1-4.
Your tiebreaker situation is
hellacious.
Right. If you lose this, so I call this a Super Bowl conversation elimination game.
Okay.
I don't want to hear. I mean, they'll make the playoffs. Both of them will probably make the playoffs. At least the Bills will. I don't want to hear about a Super Bowl contender from the loser of this game, whoever they may be.
What if it's like super duper close and the Bills win by like a field goal? I think that Cincinnati could still kind of be hovering around that conversation.
Yeah, but look at Cincinnati's schedule. Look at the division. Like you're going to.
I got to tell you, Mike. If I'm the Bengals, the Steelers don't scare me. If I'm the Bengals, the Browns. I know that the Browns beat them in week 1. The Browns don't scare me.
It's not about being scared. It's about already having being behind the tiebreaker 8 ball.
Yeah, but do you trust the Browns to keep rattling up wins with PJ Walker and Creeper whenever he's in the lineup?
No, I don't. But you already are 0-2 in division. I can see the Ravens sweeping you. I can see you. That puts you at 0-3. So you go 3-3 in your division. You wind up knotted with the Ravens at the end. You're a wild card right now. You're on road going through the playoffs. It's a real tricky. And they would be with a loss. Let me pull this up so I'm not wrong. They would be 0-4 in the AFC with a loss. So they're going on the road throughout the playoffs, probably with a loss here. So it's not matter how good they are or how bad the Creeper is, or the Canada.
Canada and the Creeper sounds like a show on HGTV or something.
Oh my god! Not HGTV. Oh, like what are they? What are they fixing up homes together? Not Canada and Deshaun Watson.
TLC's the better network for that. Like coming up after my 600-pound life, Canada and the Creeper, like something like that.
Right. He's an idiot. He's a scumbag. Together, yeah. They solve crime.
I gotta say, like the Matt Canada thing's well and done and overplayed. Like he seems like from all accounts, he's a nice guy. It's just he hasn't ran a successful offense since he was at the University of Indiana in 2007. So it's not good. The Bills and Bengals, by the way, since week 5 in EPA per play offensively, the Bills are 2nd, the Bengals are 6th. And then if I pull up their defense, because I am curious about Buffalo's defense in that span. But the Bengals defense is 3rd in EPA per play since week 3. The Buffalo Bills defense is 29th. So I think that without Milano, without Trey White, it's gonna. Now they just traded for Roswell Douglas. I don't know if he's going to play this week or not. Probably maybe 50-50, probably not. But regardless, 29th in EPA per play, not good.
Not good. And some of the EPA per play on offense, there are so many plays from the beginning of the season beating the crap out of the Raiders.
Oh, don't worry. That's why I adjusted it to week 5.
Okay. So it was still more reasonable. And per play, they really were smoking the Buccaneers. So that makes sense. Yeah.
And I think when we see like fans were clamoring for like more, hey, let Josh Allen be Josh Allen and run the ball. Because we've seen how successful they are. And he started doing that more. I think he had early on in the game, they had like a 3rd and 7, and he picked up 9. He ran for the touchdown, obviously, early on in the game. I would like to see them utilize him more in the run game. Maybe not be the entirety of the run game, but he's at his best when he's allowed to be him.
Yeah, 2 or 3 zone reads a game can make a huge difference on how you're defended. Yeah, doesn't take much.
Your Philadelphia Eagles are 3-point favorites at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Philadelphia is starting to come into the red. Something about them and the Commanders. I always know to bet the over in those games.
Yes.
They have a tendency of making Sam Howell look like Patrick Mahomes, and he played his ass off, but so did Jalen Hurts, throwing for 4 touchdowns. Both these teams coming off really big offensive performances. Dak Prescott had a really nice game against the Rams. 3-point favorites are the Eagles. I still think until Dallas shows me that they can win a close game against a good team, I'm going to bet against them in that situation. So I like the Eagles in this game. I think 3 points. I think the Eagles by like 5 is a fine score to bet. So I go Eagles -3.
That's reasonable. In DVOA, I'll be on with Aaron tomorrow, and the Eagles are ranked 9th in DVOA. In DVOA. And you have a lot of these games, when you look at their wins, statistically, they're not dominant wins. No. The pass defense gives up a lot of yards. We saw that with Hal this week, for example. We saw it with Mac Jones. He had a lot of yards along the way.
Anytime you're giving up a lot of passing yards to Mac Jones, it's time to really look yourself in the mirror.
It is a little bit. Now, part of it is there's no solution for the Eagles in the slot. Or wherever they play hide the number 3 cornerback, a team that can find them is finding them. And for the Commanders, it was Dotson, really, in the slot.
That was Jahan Dotson's first big game of the year, too. He had been very quiet up until that point.
Right. And the Eagles are putting Bradbury on him sometimes. Bradbury's not a good matchup for Jahan Dotson.
Right.
And then you put, like, Blankenship. And that was not good. And so the Cowboys are going to be like, well, we're going to hide CeeDee Lamb any place we possibly can and keep him away from Slay. And that'll be tricky. I just don't know what else the Cowboys can bring to the table against a good opponent, as opposed to the Rams, who are an opponent that has 4 amazing players and then nothing else.
Yeah. How much of an impact do you think Kevin Byard is going to make? Because obviously, like, Terrell Owens is fine, but Kevin Byard's an upgrade at that spot.
Yes.
And then if you look at the Eagles EPA wise, EPA per play this season, they are 4th. Success rate, they are 6th. So, I mean, the offense has been, in terms of an EPA per play standpoint, they've been good.
Yeah.
But up until recent, like,
turnover,
until they played the Dolphins, they hadn't looked like the dominant Eagles that we were accustomed to last year. And then I think the drive after the interception late in the game against Tua, where they just drove it down their throats and just ran and ran and ran, and then hit the deep bomb to AJ Brown. I think that was when, okay, there's the Eagles. They were still there. It's just now they finally come out.
The turnovers are a big deal, and the run it down your throat mentality kind of left, I think, with Steichen a little bit. Mm-hmm. Where now, it's like feature Jalen Hurts, and feature AJ Brown some more. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for the Eagles. I think that balance is a big deal. I think the Vikings game was a reminder, like just run it, just run it.
Yeah.
Just run it against these opponents. I don't know if you can do that against that, but you want to stay super balanced against the Cowboys because their pass rush will destroy you.
How much? You talked about it a little bit. It comes down to like the trust with the Cowboys. I don't know if I can trust They barely escaped against the Chargers. Like Mike McCarthy tried out Brandon Staley, and Brandon Staley tried out Mike McCarthy. Like, it was just a battle of who's going to mess this up first.
Right.
So, in Dallas, you look at their numbers, they're pretty close to the Eagles in a lot of offensive categories. The Eagles are 4th in EPA per play. The Cowboys are 6th. And then when you look at success rate, Dallas is 8th. The Eagles are 6th. So they're near each other in offense. Defensively, Dallas has had a lot of injuries this year. How are they going to be able to answer for AJ Brown? And if you try to double AJ Brown, okay, there's Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert at tight end, and they can still run the ball a lot. So I think there's just going to be too many questions for the Cowboys defense to answer. I don't know if they have the horses to answer all those questions.
I can definitely see that. And again, you look at the opponents they beat, they steamrolled and got defensive points or points off of turnovers very early against these teams like the Giants, who don't have a lot of firepower, against the Jets. Again, the Rams have firepower. They've got no offensive line.
Yeah.
So you do that. It's a different vibe against the Eagles. So, it's a difference between a high volatility team like the Cowboys, really, really low floor, really, really high ceiling, and the Eagles, who don't have a low floor. They have a high floor and a highish ceiling, but they haven't done these 45-point wins or whatever the Cowboys have done. I'm more comfortable with the Eagles. Eagles Cowboys games here in Eagles country is insane. It's like anxiety neurosisville. And I'm glad it's a 4:30 game because I'm gonna leave the tavern. I'm gonna leave that environment. I'll be back here in my office working for that game. But the tension level for these games is really high around here. But I don't bet Eagles Cowboys games. But if I did, I'd go with the Eagles.
The one Eagles Cowboys game I do remember very vividly. What year was it? Was it 2000? Maybe 2008. Mm-hmm. Last game of the year where the Eagles won something like 40-6 or something. They just beat the living hell out of Romo and Owens and the boys. And that knocked Dallas out of the playoffs that year. It was just a big collapse that they had in the middle of the season.
Right. Oh my God. I'm trying to remember if that the year the Eagles made it back into the playoffs and made it to the NFC Championship game, or was that
that would have been 2008 then, because I think they played the Cardinals in the NFC Championship game that year.
Yes, and this was this back and forth thing, and Kurt Warner led this epic comeback against the Eagles. Yeah, that was the Trent Cole game. Trent Cole had 2 or 3 sacks in the game we're talking about, and I don't think I wasn't writing on Sundays yet, and if I remember correctly, that was a big drinking and whooping it up experience for that. Kind of miss having those in this line of work where it's just oh, the game's over. Let's do shots. The game's over. Got to file my deadline. Okay, go get my notes together.
I might have an unpopular opinion, and you can. I would like your opinion on this. So, my friends obviously know that they know what I do for a living and whatnot, and they ask, "Oh man, you must go to the games a lot and whatnot." I'm like, no, if I can stay home, and I'm going to stay home. Is that the case for you as well? Do you prefer staying home rather than being in the press box?
I prefer to stay home to being in the press box. So much of what I do, it's rare that I'm doing a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's get down there and interview ask the quarterback a question and things like that. I've done that, but it's a different scene. When you're doing the Sunday roundup or you're sending an email to an editor. Well, after this week, I think I want to write about Josh Allen, or I want to write about Kirk Cousins' injury or whatever. Mm-hmm. Being in the press box is zero help for that. It can be a hindrance for that.
Yeah.
Because you can't get necessarily the information you need quickly unless it's on the exact game you're at.
I'll say this. So the Steelers have a Thursday night game tomorrow, and they have another one against the Patriots in a few weeks. When it's a standalone game, cool. When I don't got to worry about doing several other games for different outlets, awesome.
Right.
But yeah, very much on a football Sunday, I'm at home and I'm in my little corner office taking care of stuff.
That's what Bleacher would do for me. They would send me on the Thursday night standalones if they were regional.
That's smart.
And I would do a gamer for them. And then on Sunday, I was back in the house. And that was good. I was out at Pittsburgh. Michael Vick started.
You at the Michael Vick game against Baltimore?
Against the Ravens, which was this, a typically muddy, mucky, grimy game, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the Steelers won it.
They did,
right? And I forget who I interviewed after the game in there, and it's it's great. I get interviews after the game, and I put them in there and everything, and you get the same number of viewers you would get if you were sitting at home and just look at this play, let's make fun of this guy or whatever. But I had the added joy, and on that one, I took a plane. I flew from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh.
How long was that flight? 10 minutes?
It's 10 minutes, but it's 2 hours waiting for the plane, and then it's an hour of weaving through the around the river to get from the airport to the game, and then back to the hotel. So I'm still 5 hours on the road, where it would have been 6 hours on the road.
Right.
But I had the convenience of not having my own car.
I'll say this about that. So when I did a feature on Michael Vick, and I was talking to him. Mm-hmm. About his time in Pittsburgh. And I straight up told him, I was like, Michael Vick, I know that everybody else remembers you for your chaotic runs and whatnot in Atlanta, but growing up as a Steeler fan, the one Michael Vick play that will forever stick out in my brain is you running and leading the way for Le'Veon Bell, throwing a lead block for a touchdown, and he just started laughing. That's what you do when you're a Steeler. And I was like, damn right it is, Michael Vick. So that was fun. Where were we? Seamless transition. Talking about Baltimore, they played the Seahawks this weekend at home, 5.5-point favorites. That's going to be the game of the 1 o'clock window. At least we assume so. Baltimore, they big win against Detroit a couple weeks ago. By the way, the Cardinals last week, a legendary backdoor cover against the Cardinals.
Yes.
They were 9.5-point dogs. They recovered the onside kick because Nelson Aguilar, and Matt Prater kicked a field goal to push the game to within a touchdown, and they covered. So shout out to you, Nelson Aguilar. I think I like Seattle in this game, though. Baltimore to me, man, like I can always count on them to be, a 9-10 win team when they're all healthy. They'll be in the midst of the wild card hunt. I can't count on them to always be dominant, with the exception of Lamar's first year as a starter, where they just steamrolled people because no one had an answer for that offense.
Right.
So they've had a few weeks stretch now where they look really good against the Lions. They beat the Cardinals. I think that facing a Seattle team that right now is hungry, who just added Leonard Williams to an already really good defense, I don't see a hole on the Seahawks defense. This is a team that's in first place in the NFC West, playing to stay in first place in the NFC West. And I think they go in. I don't think they just cover. I think they win outright in Baltimore.
Wow. I'm not going for an outright win. I just do not trust the Ravens -6 in this game. Because if there's any team, and last week was just an example, any team that's going to win by 4 or by a field goal in a close game, it's the Ravens for the last 12 years of their lives. And, I watched the Ravens-Cardinals. Ravens are number 1 in DVOA from Aaron shots.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me. And he said if you take the Lions game out, they're still number 1 in DVOA. And I'm going to ask him tomorrow on the podcast if he was high when he did that, because that can't be right. I watched the Cardinals game, and I was like, when does this game start? Like, I'm sitting there, I'm watching the replay. I'm like, when do the Ravens start to look good? It was 7-7 forever. And the number of 3 and outs by the Ravens will stun you. Like, that they're just – it looked like that bad version of the Ravens offense that we sometimes see, where the running game doesn't work. We took away the scramble lanes, and, like, nobody can get open in the middle of the field for Lamar. And I was
do you remember a couple seasons ago on Thursday night, they were playing a really bad Dolphins team, and they did that exact same thing where the Dolphins just said, you're not running on us, and you're not doing a little swing pass shit, beat us downfield. And they just sent, I think, I can't remember who was still there for I think it was 2021.
It was Flores.
Was Flores still there?
And Tua, I think he benched Tua in that game because Flores, for all of his genius, does the dumbest things with quarterbacks.
Yeah. But to his credit, he just sent like 8 guys all night, and they could not figure it out. And they beat the Ravens in a game where they were the worst team, but Baltimore just couldn't figure it out. It felt like that was happening again, something similar to that against the Cardinals, where Cardinals just didn't care. They had nothing to lose, and they were playing like it.
Right, and then Joshua Dobbs was just throwing the ball up for grabs.
The Pastronaut.
The Pastronaut was out of
orbit.
Yeah, at this point. He had like 3 or 4 games of trickery that he could throw at you, and that was really run out in this game. There was one play where he managed to throw the ball away at the last second. He scrambled backwards 35 yards. 35 yards.
That sounds about right for a career third stringer.
Yeah, he got out of the arms of like Mondabuke or one of the guys there and managed to throw it away at the last second. I like Joshua Dobbs. Good luck, Minnesota. He's a very nice young man. Going back to this, I don't trust the Ravens to cover a 6-point spread. I don't see this overpowering Seahawks team, but you're right. They're complete.
Yeah.
They're complete. They're sufficient. They're not going to go out there and lose a bad game stupidly because of this glaring weakness. That's not who they are. And they should play everybody close at this point.
Yeah, and they're getting healthy too. Like, they're getting Charles Cross back. The offensive line's getting healthier. And defensively, they've been like Reek Willen's been good. Devin Witherspoon's been really good as a rookie in the nickel. You add Williams to Mafe and Draymond Jones. Bobby Wagner's still playing at a relatively high level when he's there. Like, Jamal Adams has had a really solid year too. Like, I don't see issues.
He's not a joke right now. He's not a meme. Right? and the Bobo kid.
The Bobo fella who's every white guy sitting at home that's their new favorite player because he's just quirky and gets the job done. He's the new Taysom Hill, except he's like actually like talented.
Oh, come on, we're not gonna slander Taysom here. No Taysom slander. Taysom's fine. He's just not like 4 years at $66 million or whatever.
That's a better way of saying it. That's a better way of saying it. Yeah. Sorry, Taysom. I don't have anything against Taysom Hill. I have things against that 1 year where everybody just couldn't stop talking about Taysom Hill. I still have PTSD from that.
I respect that. And Who called him one? Was it Baldy who called him one of the best players in the NFL like this year?
That sounds about right. I like Baldy though.
I like Baldy. We get carried away when we're trying to get that.
Oh, absolutely. We work in an industry that is very overreactionary. Very hyperbolic.
There's an individual who's become like one of the big quarterback talkers, like the quarterback expert talkers. And I had to follow and immediately mute them because this person this is a former ball player.
Okay.
Skipped the part in between where they're sort of a measured, intelligent person talking about, the dagger concept and things like that, and leaped immediately to, is this person the next Dan Marino? Like,
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like,
okay.
Is Will Levis Dan Marino now? And I looked at this, and it's like, you need to at least spend a year or two being normal before you turn into this braying jackass who just watches 4 passes by a guy and goes out there and jumps up and down and says this stuff and says, well, I'm a former quarterback, so, you have to listen to what I say. And it's like, no.
That's I'll save it for after the lobby, but
I
have a very good comp for that. We can talk about Will Levis for a minute because he plays my Steelers tomorrow. And by the way, bet the under for that. Both teams are 2 of the worst in the league at covering or hitting the over.
I'm doing first quarter under, almost guaranteed.
Bet your mortgage on that.
Great.
Why not?
Great.
What's the first quarter? What is the first quarter over? It's probably just like 7.5 or something.
I usually that's what I'm doing like at 5:00 at night here. The first quarter over 6.5. I'll go under at plus 114.
That's fine. Can you do if you can do a same game parlay, do first quarter under and just total under? That's probably a fine little parlay you can do.
Probably do something like that. I usually don't parlay them because I like the first quarter is done. I know whether I've got a win or a loss, and then I can go place additional bets. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good call. I might have to take that out of the Mike Tanier book of sports betting,
especially on night games.
Yeah, when you've got nothing better to do on a Thursday night besides bet Steelers Titans first quarter over unders.
Right, because if it's like 28-3 at halftime, you can just go to bed. You don't have to but you got like a little play and you had fun. And you're not waiting to the end, like, if somebody backdoor covers on me on the fourth quarter and you're like half asleep. Not fun.
Okay. Well, the over-under is 36.5. The Steelers are 1-6 against the over. The Titans are 2-5. But Will Levis just threw for 4 touchdowns against good Falcons defense.
Yeah.
But it was watching that game back, it was very just like, okay, he's either going to throw it 900 yards downfield or he's throwing a screen pass. There's not any intermediate game right now for Will Levis.
No, and it's very old school with a rookie quarterback. If you like what you see on a one-on-one matchup with the star receiver going up the sideline, just heave it 50-50 ball, let Nuke get it. The old Kubiak system would have a lot of that. Like, do a play action, he goes up the sidelines, single coverage throw it. If not, there's a fullback over here, right? Gets a 2-yard pass. It wasn't exactly like that, but it was like there was a lot of screens to Akanakwo and to the running backs and everything, and then it was bombs to Nuke. And I liked it, especially in contrast to the over-engineered Arthur Smith method of doing everything.
Yes, where he's having tight end 3 throw to tight end 2 while tight end 1 blocks.
Yes. And it would be sorcery for him to say, why don't you just get the ball to your best player as much as possible, hand off to Derrick Henry, bomb the Nuke Hopkins, see if that's enough points. And it worked, and it was. Now, who will it be? Nuke against Joey Porter Jr. this week?
If I had to guess, yeah. He's played that well where he can. It won't be probably for every matchup because he's not gonna follow Nuke, I don't think. But there will be some matchups where it'll be him against Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah,
which I'm excited to see because Joey Porter Jr.'s play. I mean, as a Steelers fan and as somebody who covers the team, is finally getting the snaps that he deserves and is finally a starter. And he held in matchups against Calvin Ridley, he held him to 2 catches for only 20 yards. So I'm liking what I see from Joey Porter Jr.
Good. Well, this will be a tough test for him, and it's a big receiving core because he'll probably be on Treylon for whatever Treylon.
I forget that Treylon Burks even still exists. The poor guy.
It's a shame. I did like him coming out of college, but you get these slow 40s, and they're always speaking to you. They're always telling you something. The slow 40s, like, well, no, because if you look at his route running and his versatility and his Deebo Samuel attributes and everything, nope. Nope, not today, Satan. Nope, he's going to, he's going to be lumbering on the shallow cross, and that's who he's going to be.
I mean, at that point, he should just eat a few biscuits and become a tight end.
No, that never works.
No?
That never works. No, that's the JJ Ortega-Whiteside ticket out of the NFL. I mean, because there's a type of receiver who is like super blocking guy.
Yeah.
Kendrick Bourne, Trent Sherfield. But like that's a specialist, and they're not super bulky guys. They're just like MF. Just like they slam in there. And you kind of want them to stay receivers because then, they'll get covered. They'll get these matchup confusion, and like the team will go into nickel or dime based on where they're out there. So,
It's going to be Will Levis against Kenny Pickett. And here's a fun little nugget for you. In his first start, Will Levis threw for 2 more touchdowns than Kenny Pickett ever has in a game. Kenny Pickett has not thrown for more than 2 touchdowns in a game. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns in a game once in his career. And by the way, somebody had tweeted this. I'm going to try to give them credit for this because it's a mind-boggling stat that will just irritate Steelers fans to high heavens.
Okay.
Let me find it. Here it is. Okay, so this is from Scott Cashmere. Lowest passing touchdown percentage in NFL history, minimum 500 attempts. Gary Huff is number 1. Kenny Pickett is number 2. He is worse in terms of that than Chris Winkie, Deshaun Kaiser, Ryan Leaf, and Brady Quinn. Those are some names.
Wow. Yeah, you broke up a little bit. I did hear Deshaun Kaiser and Chris Winkie, which was sufficient to give me a sense of this. What's the mentality? What's the Steeler fan mentality on Pickett right now? Is he still God's gift to sliced bread, or?
You and I had this conversation around this time last year, so we might as well give an update on it. So at this point last year, there was and still 2 fan bases within one. It's the Kenny Pickett stands who, it's not Kenny Pickett's fault. Matt Canada stinks. The offensive line stinks. Woe is me, poor Kenny Pickett. And then there's the normal people who are like, okay, well, yeah, Matt Canada's bad and the offensive line still isn't very good, but this quarterback stinks. He's not good. And I hate like saying that, especially in like this line of work and everything. I shouldn't say stinks because Kenny Pickett's a cool dude. He's a nice guy. I'm not trying to bash the human being. He's just not a good NFL quarterback, man. And nothing that I've seen, I haven't seen any sort of progression from year 1 to year 2. And can some of that be attributed to the offense? Yes, of course it can. Can some of it be attributed to the offensive line not being great? Yes, of course it can. But those things aren't mutually exclusive, and he has not looked good. So that's where I'm at. There's still going to be fan bases that are fans within the fan base that are, Kenny's the guy. Look at all the game-winning drives and everything. That's cool, but it would also be awesome if he didn't play really badly for 58 minutes and have to have a game-winning drive.
The game-winning drive. So it's like the last, like Zach Wilson has like 3 of them now or 4 of them.
He just had one this past Sunday.
Right. It's like
awful.
It's the Tim Tebow statistic. Look at the game-winning drive to win the game 16-13. It's like, what the hell did you do for 3.5 quarters that you had to heroically throw a jump ball to George Pickens or whatever you do in week to week to get these victories? And I don't want to trash Pickett but like at some point you'd see the there in the there.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it was there'd be like a 3 touchdown game and a loss, he'd have gotten into a shootout, or you'd see, just a statistically strong game or something where, he's finding these tertiary targets or doing something. And all you see is sort of, it's rarely disastrous. Let's put it that way. But
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. But it's just, he's there. You don't see these brilliant decisions. You don't see these improvisational great moments. He's just there.
Again, anytime you're in a group where you are worse at something than Chris Winkie, Deshaun Kaiser, Ryan Leaf, and Brady Quinn, that's not good. It's not good.
Right. That's a bad sign. And with him and Love, who's trending down into the ditch, and Ritter, who's already benched, and Hal. And I hesitate to put Pickett in the same conversation because he was a first-round pick. You don't have
a reach as a first round pick, though, man. Like it felt like even then when he was taken in the first round, like you probably could have waited.
You don't have a starting quarterback just because you say you have a starting quarterback.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
you can't manufacture a franchise quarterback out of a couple of late season wins and an off season of headlines and messaging.
Yes.
Which is
really... I drank the Kool-Aid. Like, I drank the preseason Kool-Aid. I saw, oh my goodness, they're scoring touchdowns on every preseason drive. This is going to be a great year. And then the offense was more of the same of what it was last year.
Right. They're still running their preseason offense against real defenses.
Yeah. That is for definitely the thing with like those other quarterbacks though, like with Hal, I see a lot of like Jameis Winston in him where either he is on or he has two. He's like Patrick Mahomes or like Subway sandwich artist. Like those are Sam Howell's two modes.
Right.
At least with that, you can at least see, okay, Sam Howell threw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's pretty cool. Like maybe we have something here. But we haven't seen any of that with Pickett yet.
Right. He's just there. Right. Howell is making all kinds of good and terrible things happen. Love does a little of that, where it's mostly terrible. Then you'll see the arm.
Do you think they're in like Drake May territory right now, Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be looking for a quarterback next year unless there's a sudden turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Love is on like a 1-year contract.
Yeah, because I mean he's been there forever.
They did a restructure on him, and it's this year, and there's like a 2nd-year option in it, but it's like a team option. Right. So they built this, and people have asked me, why haven't they benched this kid yet? Like, well, first of all, I can't even identify his backup.
I'm going to find out who the backup quarterback for the Packers is now because I don't know who it is either.
And secondly, if you're on a 1-year contract and it's a rebuilding year and you're still paying Aaron Rodgers $88 gazillion, you might as well keep evaluating and be like, okay, we'll just solve this problem in January. We'll solve it in the draft.
All right, so I am looking up who their backup quarterback is because I'm fascinated to see who it could possibly be.
Nice.
So let's see. Drum roll, please, if this loads any slower.
Nice work.
The backup quarterback is. Oh yeah, I knew who this is. Yeah, never mind. Sorry, as a Penn State fan, I know Sean Clifford.
Oh yeah. Okay, there you go.
I forgot that he won the backup job. Yeah, sorry.
Big Red Dog.
Who's their third quarterback? It doesn't have who.
Do they have one? Do they have?
I don't think they have. They don't have one listed on their team site.
Oh my goodness! I'm going to go to Our Lads to see.
I was like, Our Lads will have it.
Right. So yeah, Sean Clifford, 5th-round pick, which I thought was a little high.
They don't have one listed on Our Lads either. I don't think they have one.
Alex McHugh.
Sure. Why not?
McHugh. I remember Florida International. He was like a big, buzzy, like draftniks were like, oh, this guy, he's the top secret guy. And he was like this kind of burly dude at Florida International. It was like, like the Pillsbury throw boy guy. Maybe not. I might be thinking of the wrong guy, but he's been on the Seahawks, Jaguars, Texans, Seahawks again, and now Green Bay practice squads since 2018. So that's your number 3.
Good for him. Yeah, that's a fun trivia question.
Who led Florida International in passing in 2016? And
what is the Florida International? Is it the Panthers? Florida National Panthers?
That sounds right.
Sounds about right.
Right.
I'm looking at the rest of the slate here. Mike Tanier, like I said, it's a low. We're going to get Taylor Heineke against Jaron Hall. We're going to get either Kyler Murray or Clayton Tune against PJ Walker. There's Sam Howell against Mac Jones. Oh, maybe the Bill Belichick Bowl potentially. Maybe he'll be scouting. Maybe Josh Harrison and him will have a conversation pregame. That'll be a fun thing to pay attention to.
Oh my God.
CJ Stroud's playing football Sunday though. I like what I'm seeing from CJ Stroud. I think the Texans are a frisky wild card contender.
I like him now better when people aren't talking about him as much than I liked him when people were talking about him. Like he looked rock solid to me against the Panthers in a game where, I mean, he got sacked a few too many times in that game. I think they were stopped at the goal line at some point along the way, etc. But he looked very good managing the game. He was getting the ball to Nico. He was moving it well. And like early in the season, he was like this magic unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
Like CJ Stroud, is he Joe Burrow, Joe Montana, or Jesus of Nazareth? And now it's died out. It's died out, but that's good because it's like, well, he is a young quarterback. They still really run the ball a lot for him. They do a lot of Dell end arounds and things like that for him to protect him. But he can get the ball down the field. He's making good decisions with it. Yeah, they're losing 16-15 to the Panthers. But I think you're right. You call them a wild card team?
I don't think I think that they'll be like the 8-9 team that's contending and going to be in it to like week 16, 17.
Yeah, they're the team. Yeah, they can manufacture enough Colts wins and Titans wins. And I think to really do it, they needed that Panthers win. Like they needed that one in there, and then they could have slipped in at like the 9-8 team there. But no, I'm happy the direction they're going in.
Very happy indeed. Outside of that, there is no games that are really worth talking about, I don't think. What's the Monday night game this week? Chargers-Jets has the potential to be the stupidest game we've ever seen. I'm so excited for it. Buck and Aikman are going to have just a wild time calling that game. If the Chargers lose that game, they're what, 3-5 then?
Yes.
If the Jets win, they're 5-3. Apparently, they expect the Shaman to be back under center at some point this season.
The Shaman's people keep telling that story because the Shaman really wants that story out there.
I mean, yeah, that seems pretty evident.
He is so attention starved right now. It's sad. It's pathetic. It's like my dog when I've been working for 2 or 3 hours and comes like and like puts his head on my lap and everything. Like, you need attention so bad, Aaron Rodgers. You have to send your minions to go. You know, he could come back. And maybe he can. Maybe he can come back in January. We'll see how the 40-year-old is moving on the recently healed by like whale semen Achilles or whatever he's using, unicorn farts or whatever he's using on his freaking Achilles. You know, we'll see how that goes in January in MetLife Stadium in the cold. We'll see how that works out.
Oh, I love it. Very much fun. All right, my friend. Well, hey, what have you got coming on the Messenger this week?
So much. I wrote about Josh McDaniels today. I wrote a mailbag. I don't remember what's in it today. I'm previewing some of these games. I also did a Kirk Cousins sort of retrospective earlier in the Messenger. So there's a lot there. Go to the Messenger, folks. It is your source, not just for sports, but for news, politics, business, entertainment, all the things you used to get in a newspaper. Remember newspapers, Jarrett?
No.
All the things you used to get from a big website, you can get at our big website. Go check it out. It is 100% free. You get on a mailing list. You can get like a daily update, themessenger.com, and you'll find me there. You'll find Ryan Nanny there, Mike Renner there, Gary Gramling there, Kalen Jones there. A lot of good voices, really good NBA and baseball voices too. I just don't know who they are. You talk to people, say, "Oh, you got such and such covering baseball." I'm like, yeah, like no idea who they are. God bless them. I'm sure they're amazing.
I'll tell you one thing about newspapers. So every Sunday morning, because my dad was a Penn State fan. I grew up a Penn State fan. And so like my first and second grade year when they were pretty solid. My first grade year, they won the Orange Bowl. And so they were really good that year. And every Sunday Sunday paper, the cover would be the Penn State game. And like one side of the paper would be the Penn State helmet and the score, and the other side would be the other team's helmet and the score. I had a collection of those forever. I don't know what I did with them, but yeah, that's my recollection of newspapers. I don't recall ever like reading too much from like an actual one.
Was it the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette or was it like the Altoona Wrap?
It would have been. So I didn't live in Pittsburgh at the time. It was in central Pennsylvania. It was in York County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So what the hell would that have been? I don't know. I'll have to look because that's going to be somewhere.
Paper.
Maybe something Courier. Maybe does that sound about right?
That's it. I know there is a Carrier and Times somewhere out there, and nowadays it's probably like westernpod.com, and it's like
right.
But what you're talking about was what kept the newspapers alive for many years. Is that like no one cared anymore about anything else, but they wanted that sports section with those that photography and their favorite columnist and the box score and everything like that, and the lines. The lines were a big deal, and people would keep it for that. Now they only keep them for like high school sports. That
was another big thing was high school sports. But okay, so answer me this, Mike Tanier, because I've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
How did people, you talk about the lines in newspapers back in, the 2000s and whatnot. How did people bet before sports betting was legal?
There's this guy called a bookie. And I had friends who did it, and I had friends who had friends who did it. And when I was really young, I had friends whose uncles or elder brothers did it, and you got to know somebody, and you got a phone number, and you placed a bet, or you told the guy next to you at the bar, and he placed the bet for you. That's how it was done, and it's how it's still done, because a lot of people will not bet with the with DraftKings, FanDuel, etc., because there's a tax trail. And there's also a potential spouse trail if you're spending a lot of money. Again, so I know people who are in that business, who are still in that business, because their regular customers are more comfortable going to them than, which I find crazy, by the way. It's like 100%.
Anyway.
I don't have to care. I don't care if there's a paper trail that I'm placing $10 bets, whatever. But that's how it was done. I knew a guy, and it would be like, "Oh, we got to take a ride," and he had a little pile of money that was the collection from his 20 or 30 clients.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, $600-700. Go to South Philly, go to a bar, this mysteriously empty bar, like something out of the old Rocky movie. And the guy would be there. There's like 2 taps. So this bar is obviously a front. 2 taps and like 2 bottles of Jack in the back. And you sit down and they pour you a beer and whatever. And they might have like a thing of meatballs so they can say they serve food too. And you wait, and the guy goes in the back room to pay the major bookie, the next person up the scale, gets his little cut of the vig, comes out, you drink a beer, you go home. And that was like weekly, bi-weekly ritual to keep the money flowing.
I often romanticize being in that type of situation, like being like a mafia, because I'm not Italian, so I couldn't be like a made man, but I could be like like the Irishman. I could be that.
Yeah, you're not a made man taking book at like a South Jersey bar. You're somebody's nephew, honestly, and it's like you're okay with numbers. And one of the things is, it's like these guys come to you, you have to cover them. Like we're not.
Yeah, that would be hard.
Yeah, we're not going to send Rocky Balboa in to cover you if you take $1,000 bet from an idiot. Like you have to figure this out on your own. So a lot of the times it's like, how much you place? I'm placing $100 bet. Well, that's your max because I'm covering you right now. And it's like I'll have to cover your $100 and I'll have to come after you.
Yeah.
But when I was a teenager, we had guys, and like the Rocky Balboa enforcer would call the dad. Hey, your boy's like like $200 in debt to the local Godfather, and the dad be like, "Holy shit!" He's like, "We'll break your boy's hand or whatever," and like the dad pays the $200 and like then beats the crap out of the dad. That's how it was, and probably how it still is.
Oh, I grew up in the wrong era. I think that just sounds like morbidly. That just sounds like so much fun. Getting in, yeah. You know what? I think that a little bit of danger raises the adrenaline. Like, what's the danger? What's the danger in throwing $10 on a bet on FanDuel? Nothing. If I throw $20 on somebody's nephew's uncle, whatever the hell, and I get my hand broken, yeah, that's a story.
Yeah, it was mostly benign, and this is better now. And I don't know if teenagers can gamble now. I don't think they care, because you can do so many things on your video game with video games and like app purchases. Like no one even targets them for gambling. It's like, I'll just put Madden on your phone and you'll want power ups. That's going to cost 99 cents, and they blow $60 like powering Tyreek Hill up or whatever they do in these games. But no, we had a guy in 10th grade geometry who was taking books. Yeah. And another guy who was dealing pot. It was one-stop shopping. Neither of them were me.
That sounds like everything I would want, and to grow up in high school like that. Like, don't get me wrong, the technology and everything of today is great, and I don't know how I would have a career if not for like social media and stuff, because I genuinely don't know how it was done. But I could try it for a week.
you try out living in like the 80s for a week.
I think that would be fun. If I could have like a time machine just to go back and see what it was like.
Yeah, I don't want to relive it. I think I enjoyed it in the time, but like it was only 40 years ago, but it was weird. And you're right, in a world with no social media. When I was first running fantasy football teams, I had to get the USA Today to get the box scores, and had to like hand do the box scores or do the box scores on Lotus on my little computer. And I
Goodness.
would leave stuff on the answering machine. I would leave the results on the answering machine. There was no internet. Forget having a thing where it's like, well, we just go through a fantasy service and CBS or ESPN runs it. Like everything was run by hand, and I'd do it, and I'd get the phone call, say, Mike, you better go back and check. I don't think you got Drew Bledsoe's yardage total right. And I go, oh, you're right. I have to go fix it and things like that. It was a different world. This was 92, 93 we're talking about. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's one thing I'll never understand. Alas, I'm but a wee lad who didn't grow up in that era.
The 80s were fucked. Yeah. Have you seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I've seen it. You know what? I gotta tell you, Mike, I don't like it.
Right. My kid will rant about what don't you like about it?
I think that it's just very quirky, I think is the best way of putting it. Like everybody that I know that likes it talks about it as like this incredible, like coming of age for its time. And I watched, I was like, this isn't good. Like it's not horrible. Like I've definitely seen worse movies, but there's nothing special about it.
You don't look and say Ferris is a sociopathic douchebag who is absolutely abusing Cameron through this entire movie.
Now that you mention it, and yeah, maybe.
Right. Cameron, who is dealing with a lot of anxiety issues and things like that, is being dragged along on an adventure that he has no interest in being a part of, and is being browbeaten by his buddy, who also treats like his parents like crap, his little sister like crap.
Yeah, he's just like a prick.
Yeah, he's just a prick. And I watched this movie when I was 16, like, this is so cool, man. This speaks to me. And like you know, I look, and part of it was I was a teacher, you know, and I'm looking at like this little a-hole, just show the school you're in. The school you're in is a utopia. You know, it's like this wonderful suburban school in the Chicago suburbs. It's super safe. You're surrounded by all these other wonderful, beautiful children and things like that. Just show up and do your thing and go home. Not like fake sick days when you're like 17 years of age. You know,
the much better, like quote unquote coming of age movie is Dazed and Confused. That movie I love.
Much better,
but that's a good movie.
But that's a 90s movie talking about the 70s. So it's
like
it
was made in the 90s?
That's a 90s movie. That's like 93.
Okay. Yeah. When did Ferris Bueller's Day Off come out?
87, 88.
That's Matthew Broderick, right?
That's Matthew Broderick, Jennifer Grey, Ben Stein in a cameo. Jeffrey Jones as the principal, does great work there. There's a string of them. Have you ever seen Revenge of the Nerds?
I have not seen Revenge of the Nerds.
It's stunningly, everybody deserves to be canceled and condemned, whoever made it. And I watched it 20 times when I was a kid. It's full. The 80s are messed up. You've seen The Breakfast Club, right?
I've seen The Breakfast Club.
Right. So this is
I feel like like a lot of things back then could be in that category of like, oh yeah, we couldn't make this today, but like watching it back, we can goofy.
Right. Well, oh no, if you watch Revenge of the Nerds, you'd be stunned. The Breakfast Club, you could remake it, but again, it's like these very privileged kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of our problems in this cross section of America it's 4 white kids and Emilio Estevez as your closest thing to an ethnic kid in the group. The homely girl is Ali Sheedy, you know, who is like would be like the knockout homecoming queen any place on earth.
Right.
And anyway, you've got me on this. The 80s were messed up, and we didn't have smartphones, and we did not have the internet. Sort of.
There was cocaine.
We had a lot of cocaine. And
my father grew up in he was in his 20s, like late teens, early 20s throughout the 80s. He was born in 66.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right, a little older than me. So like, you know, you get this full experience. Some of the music was good. A lot of the TV was good, but like the value systems were really, really, really
good. Yeah. As a U.S. history nerd, I took a few history classes as electives in college, and I had a U.S. history since 1920s class. So we got to the 80s. I was like, this Reagan guy is kind of a dick.
Yes, and I don't want to get political on this show, but
sure.
Like the permeation of the culture of this sort of like monoculture, like this is the way things are, and like the pursuit of wealth and the pursuit of like fitting in and an acceptable central like goal for society there. Obviously, you don't want to be gay in that era.
Right.
You don't want to be any minority in the era. And when you watch the movies from the 80s, there's usually you're not doing black jokes at this point in the 80s, but every other ethnicity is on the table to mess around with. So you can kind of see what's going on right underneath the surface. And this is all being played for laughs, or just this is just the way it is. You know? And yeah, it was a weird time. It was a weird time.
That was a fun little 80s tangent that we went down. I enjoyed that.
God, we should really end this podcast before I start going off.
Yeah, I suppose so. Check out my power rankings on USA Today. I compared Jimmy Garoppolo to Sanjaya Malakar from the 2006 season of American Idol. So go and read that if you'd like. If not tomorrow, I'm at least writing it up, so it'll come out either Thursday or Friday. The 2023 All Disappointment Team.
Nice.
People who have just completely underwhelmed. So that'll be out later on. What's that?
Give me a sample. Who's in it?
The quarterback. I'll give you 2 guesses on who the quarterback is.
Oh my goodness, Daniel Jones.
There you go. Ding, ding. Yeah. Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the team. So there's a little bit of a sneak peek of the all disappointment team. So offense, defense, who's kind of disappointed this year. And then next week, maybe I'll do an all like surprise team of who's exceeded expectations to be, more of a positive person in my job. But then behind the steel curtain, all the Steelers stuff throughout the week. And then come back here for more pump fake stuff every Tuesday, the recap show, Wednesdays, the Q&A shows, and then the preview shows as well. So come back here for more. Mike Tanier, I always enjoy talking to you, my friend. I was dressed as you today since, Peter King and David Cantor both asked if we were father and son. It would have been funny.
Unbelievable.
But I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everybody for listening. This is a longer podcast, but I always enjoy our conversations, Mike. So I appreciate you.
All right, man. You too.
Take care, everybody.